Again, I'm Kelly Hedgepeth. I am with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Division of Soil and Water, and I am the Ag Cost Share Program Manager, but I'm here to talk about all of our programs. We're kind of unique here in North Carolina. We have four cost share programs that we implement through the state. First, I'd like to let everybody know that it's locally led, voluntary-based conservation. We are not a regulatory agency. Although the programs come through the state, we deliver those through our 96 soil and water conservation districts throughout the state. We have a soil and water commission that sets policies and standards, and they allocate the funds to each local county. We also do some regional applications, and I'll get into that for different programs. The local districts do set their funding priorities, so drainage may be a priority in some districts here in North Carolina, and then it may not be in some districts here in North Carolina. So it is locally set priorities. They rank each application to the best, for the best benefit for the program, but also the most cost effectiveness. So those things are ranked. They develop those conservation plans, they provide the technical assistance, and then oversee and certify the implementation of the project. We run the contracting and all the funds through our state. So our first program is the North Carolina Agriculture Cost Share Program. It started in 1984, so it's our oldest program. It started in some pilot counties, mostly in eastern North Carolina, and then it has moved throughout the entire state now. But the purpose of this program was a water quality purpose. Strictly, we were having some issues there, and they were trying to improve the water quality of the state. It's all for agriculture, so the person must be a farmer, and there's some eligibility requirements, and it's typically a 75% cost share for this program. We do have some predetermined average costs where we can, for piping and certain things in our program, but some things we have to do on receipt-based and do 75% of that. We generally follow NRCS standards, but there's not always an NRCS standard for each practice, and I'll discuss one. You'll have some handouts in front of you, and we'll talk about that. But typically, we require the producer and the farmer to maintain this practice for at least 10 years, and if we actually do some spot checking throughout that to make sure that maintenance of that practice is done. Our second program and our newest program is the Agriculture Water Resources Assistance Program. We like our acronyms too. So this is the AgWRAP. This started, we had a drought, I guess, back around 08, 09, and we got some special funding for drought money, realizing that the purpose was slightly different than our ag cost share program. So it was more of a water quantity purpose. So the legislatures created this program to strictly be water quantity. So anything that can improve water use efficiency, availability, and storage for agriculture, and also to remove burden off of municipal systems. We had some cases where farmers were on municipal systems and they were told that they could not use the water during the drought. So we wanted to make sure that farmers and producers always had the water they needed to be able to do what they do. We have 8 best management practices in this program. It's also generally a 75% cost share. They can, in both programs, get up to 90 if they're enhanced voluntary agricultural districts, so that is an incentive for them to be in that. And they generally follow NRCS standards when there's one available. We do have some North Carolina dam safety standards that have to be followed, as well as some stuff with the Corps of Engineers when we're building ponds and doing things like that. Typically, it's also 10-year maintenance on this program. And for both of these programs, there are some brochures outside that better explain than I can do in just these few minutes. But both of them, and actually one of them here has our automated water control structure, which is some drainage down. It's highlighted there in our ag cost share brochure. So I'm going to briefly hit on our other 2 programs just because we always have to talk about all of them when we come out. But, these are the AgWRAP practices. There's some photos here of some of the practices that we do there in AgWRAP. So we have a CREP program, which is basically, if you know what CRP is, it is installing buffers. It is a water quality program, and this enhances that CRP payment, and we can go out to 50-year and permanent easements on buffer areas through this program. But it's only for certain watersheds, and that's not encompassing all of our state, but it's just extended to about 2/3 of our state here in North Carolina. Our other program is our non-rural or non-agriculture, is the Community Conservation Assistance Program. This is also a water quality program. They have 17 practices basically on non-agricultural lands, and depending if it's private homes or a government entity, the maintenance period is 5 to 10 years. And that's some of the practices they do in that program. So again, one of the most confusing things, and we're talking about lessons learned, how do people get funds? And it's all through that locally led process where they have to go through our district offices, and then each county is allocated their set amount of funds, and that the farmer or the producer has to work through those county and local people to be able to receive funding. Again, I talked about there needs to be some eligibility requirements. Our legislature established this, I believe, in 2012, that you had to be a bona fide farm, and we do have some regulations where they have to prove that they are an agricultural producer to be eligible for the funding. So I did pass out the two, and this is sort of getting into most of the discussion here. There's 2 sheets in front of you. We have this practice, and we call it agriculture water collection system. Again, you can call it drainage water recycling. Some people call it tailwater recycling. There's a lot of different terms for the same practice. This is what our technical review committee chose to call it because they wanted it to be a little bit broader. The green sheet is our practice policy for the Ag Cost Share program. The yellow sheet is for our AgWRAP program. Because those programs are slightly different, the policies are slightly different. But basically, the main thing is this is a system. It usually isn't just one practice, so that's why we had to go into this. And we have there's one that you'll be visiting tomorrow, or a site that you'll be visiting, where it's a combination of water control structures and a pond site that can be backfilled. And so that falls under this particular practice for our program. I guess Muhammad wanted me to talk about some lessons learned. And the biggest thing with putting in these system-type practices is there's not a one NRCS standard fits all for that. It really depends on what that system needs to be. This is very broad, so we have done things from cisterns in production facilities for hogs and chickens, also down to a series of ponds to be able to recycle water. So these systems are very, very different, and right now they require, because there's not a specific NRCS standard and because of our rules here in North Carolina with engineering, that it must be designed by a professional engineer. So we only have very few professional engineers at our state level. I think we now are fully staffed at 4. Before we only had 2 for a long time. They're hopefully going to bring some more on because we have some huge projects due to Hurricane Matthew that are coming through. And y'all probably don't know what happened here in eastern North Carolina, but we were wiped out on pretty much half of the state, and we've got significant funds to come back in and to put in ponds and repair ponds and roads for that. So the engineers are very busy. So we do allow for outside engineering, and this particular project was designed by an outside engineer, but it has to be sealed by a PE. And that is our biggest, I guess, getting the technical assistance. We're lucky here in North Carolina. We're unlike every other state. We have at least one district person in each county to provide technical assistance. In some counties, it's 2 and 3. But that was to help us implement our agriculture program. We pay part of their salaries. The county picks in the other part of their salary. But still, that one person is covering a big area, and they cannot possibly do all the technical assistance. We have relied heavily, especially for the Ag Cost Share program, on NRCS, and a lot of people know what is happening to NRCS, and it's definitely happening here in North Carolina, where people are retiring. They're not able to rehire for those positions, and so they're having, and a lot of our people, because we are so close to D.C., they get to go there when they have vacancies there. So we are definitely short-staffed on both sides of this. So looking at, we are allowed to outsource. Both programs now pay not as much as it costs usually, but some money toward engineering. And so we are able to supplement a producer if they're needing a private engineer. We do work with the TSPs that are on the list with NRCS, so we're able to do that as well. But again, the biggest issue is making sure we have the ability to put the conservation on the ground. And of course, we're always short money, but and we're always trying to get additional funds for our programs. But we want to make sure that we can put the money that we have on the ground and have it a sound agricultural practice and